Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to begin looking ahead to the return of Parliament next week and what Conservative MPs may do about the runaway train wreck that is their party in government. And I'd like us to carry out a bit of a thought experiment and imagine, regardless of our politics, what a typical Conservative MP must be thinking and discussing right now. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, and this is going to take a little bit of effort potentially for most viewers of this channel, I would have thought. But, you know, imagine that you are a Conservative MP, and let us also imagine that whether your heart is in the right place or not, that your brain is sufficiently active and that you would like to retain your seat at the next general election. Now, you've seen your party riding high in the opinion polls earlier in the year. Nobody to touch you, absolutely nobody. Even the worsening COVID situation didn't dampen the public's attitude towards you. Even when you went into lockdown, you were still riding high, if anything, higher. Then Keir Starmer was elected the new leader of the Labour Party, and he started pulling your leader's pants down every week in Prime Minister's questions. Then Dominic Cummings, officially the Prime Minister's top political advisor, but in reality the guy who's actually running the country, according to ill thought out whims, told the country that he drove to a remote castle with his family in order to test his eyesight. Now, that gap in the polls is still there, but it's no longer riding high. The Conservative Party are no longer 25 points ahead, but just 2. It will only take one more disaster and your party is very likely to be knocked into second place before the end of the year. Labour do have troubles of their own coming up with the report from the Equality Commission due to be published soon. You know, that may buffer against some of the tomfoolery that has already cost a stonking lead in the polls, but it won't be proof in the long term. And then you start to wonder, so you're a Conservative MP, remember, you start to wonder, so why is it that Dominic Cummings is being given carte blanche to reorganise any and all government departments, overruling even cabinet ministers, when he's so crap at it? I mean, it's not even like he's an evil genius. An evil genius you could get on board with. Maybe you could forgive the political costs of having an egomaniac tarnishing your party's reputation in the short term if his work was going to bear fruit and the opinion polls would turn around in the next few years, because you've got plenty of time before the next general election. But Cummings isn't an evil genius. He's an evil muppet. He has the reverse Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to shit. And now you're looking at an autumn of COVID chaos. You'll have read the reports, like everyone else did, of the triple whammy disaster report into the impact of COVID, winter flu, and no deal Brexit. You've seen the normally supportive right-wing papers, the Telegraph, the Times, and even the rabidly wicked Daily Mail turning on Boris Johnson and this Conservative government. The Daily Mail, they went out, they scoured Scotland just to embarrass your leader and Prime Minister. That's normally the sort of effort they go into attacking Labour leaders, not Conservatives. Even Theresa May, who obviously, you know, the press turned on her in the end, she wasn't attacked like Boris Johnson has been by the right-wing press. And, you know, so then you imagine yourself in this position. Next week, you're back off to Parliament and you'll be discussing the situation with your parliamentary colleagues, other MPs. Now, some have already been briefing the media that they're dismayed by Boris Johnson's actions. One former minister that was quoted in The Guardian recently said, "You simply cannot go on making so many basic errors and expect people to support you." Now, if that sentiment is widely felt, and it's certainly felt by a significant proportion of the parliamentary party, then one of two things has to happen. One, the architect of all these cock-ups, Dominic Cummings, because as far as Conservative MPs are concerned, they know Boris Johnson's a chancer, absolutely, but the main villain is Dominic Cummings. He has to go. Or if Cummings won't go, and Boris Johnson's made it quite clear he'll stick through him, whatever, and the situation doesn't improve, or let's say Dominic Cummings does go, but the situation still doesn't improve, then Johnson himself is going to have to go. Because the combination of Cummings and Johnson has cocked up everything. It hasn't just made a mess of something really big, like the COVID response. Had they just messed that up, then you would think, well, we're going to be over it at some point. The general elections a few years away were generally okay. But they've made a mess of everything. They've made a mess of every single aspect of the COVID response, because actually the COVID response is lots of individual things. It was the lack of a protective ring around care homes. It was not getting on top of PPE acquisition for hospitals and care homes. It was organising the legislation and making a cock-up of that. It was the top political advisor clearly breaching the regulations and getting away with it. All of these things were messed up. But they've messed up everything outside it as well. They've messed up Brexit this year. They've messed up the awarding of grades for this year's school and college leavers. They've messed up the economy. No, my God, what are you doing? This chart, for example, shows an interesting correlation. So it shows on the one hand the economic damage, and on the other hand, number of excess deaths. And it seems, if you look at it, it's a weak, but it's generally a positive correlation. So what this would be saying is, on balance, countries that suffered more from excess deaths also suffered more economic damage this year. That would suggest that failing to deal with the virus robustly wasn't, as some people characterised it, pitting health concerns against economic concerns, as if, well, to boost one you have to lose on the other. But actually you arse both of them up. They're linked. Now, correlation is not causation, of course. But what is obvious is that we have suffered more economic damage than every other advanced economy in the world, bar none. You can hide that from people for a while, absolutely, but not forever. And if you take the view that the government is not in safe hands, and therefore the economy is not in safe hands, then our recovery will also be stunted compared to other countries, because it will also be a case of, so what are we going to be like in a few years' time? Will we have come out the other end? So we're in a worse hole right now than everyone else, but everyone else is in a hole. Well, most other people are in a hole, most other countries. But that hole will be comparatively deeper if other countries pick themselves up much more quickly over the next few years. So where are we going to be economically in the next general election? Still suffering when European economies are going strong again. And those will be the same European economies that we won the last general election on a promise to separate ourselves from. Oh, and ending the furlough scheme is also making a load of people lose their jobs. Well, we can't keep the furlough scheme going on, can we? That's the message. Oh, we're fine with that message. Sounds perfectly reasonable to most people. Of course we can't keep it going forever. People will buy that, sure, no problem, that's fine. Oh, but hang on a minute, hold on. Germany have just extended their furlough scheme by 2 years. Hang on. So are we now saying that we can't do what Germany can do? We're not as good as Germany? Are we seriously supposed to go and tell our supporters, who are the Brexit exceptionalists, that we're not exceptional after all? Is that what the Prime Minister is asking us to do? Go back to our constituents and say, yeah, I know Germany have extended their furlough scheme, but we can't. We're not good enough. And all the time, Keir Starmer's reminding the country of what Boris Johnson said and what he promised, and pointing out that it was all bollocks. And he keeps doing it. Johnson keeps making these statements and promises, and we're all just looking at him going, in a few weeks' time, Keir Starmer's going to be bringing this up again. He's going to be bringing it up. And he keeps making these promises just to get him out of a hole that week, knowing full well that Keir Starmer's grinning. He's loving it, because he knows he's sitting down and going, right, I'll bring this one back in a few weeks. Like shooting ducks in a barrel. And it's relentless. And it's not getting any better. And it isn't down to circumstances either. Again, if it was just COVID related, you think, well, it's going to be over sometime. We can play the long game on this. Doesn't matter how unpopular we are now. We can be deeply unpopular. We could be like the fifth most popular party in the country. for a few years. As long as we pull it back for 2024, we're fine. But it isn't down to circumstances, because everything's been messed up. And everything is getting the public irate at us. Because it's not down to circumstances, it's down to incompetence. And the thing about incompetence is it doesn't get any better until either people learn or you get rid of those people. This government hasn't really shown that it learns. It really only leaves one option left. So there we are. Thought experiment over. You can stop being a Tory MP now. But that is what I must imagine is occupying the minds of those Conservative MPs right now. And will surely be the theme of their conversations with their colleagues next week. And although I'm not building up any hopes of Boris Johnson being ousted imminently, or I'm not ruling it out when you consider things, I don't see options left for them, because this Prime Minister continues to ignore them. He keeps ignoring his own backbench MPs with constant buffoonery, constant deference to Dominic Cummings, who does not care about the party. This is the thing. Dominic Cummings does not give a shit about the Conservative Party. He probably knows he's on borrowed time. That is why he's moving so quickly with his reforms. He just wants them done before he's gotten rid of. Doesn't care if he sinks this party and it loses the next election, as long as he can put some things in place that cannot be easily unpicked. But anyway, those are my thoughts. My take on Labour's task this autumn is going to be in the next video. Until then, I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.